Hi, welcome to my channel and to my Hack and Mod show. Today's guest is the Type 81 rifle. Now, back in September 3rd of 2021, I did a comparison between a tactical import no drill side mounts to my CSA drill side mounts. And I must say, I was not a big fan of no drill side mounts to begin with, so the review wasn't particularly good for the no drill side mounts. But I know some of you guys who don't like to drill your receiver love the kit, which sold for $200. Okay, so a month later, October 3rd of 2021, I did a first review of they call it special edition. I don't, I called it red edition. And 3/4 of the shipment was Optic ready. And what that means is that these hammer and trigger pin had threads in them, okay, and they protrude on the left side of the receiver, and also the original left selector has been switched to the right side, okay. They call it Optic ready. I don't, because there's no plate. Optic ready, it would be a plate, and all you do is put the rail on and your scope on, you're done. And so I would call it Optic not ready. And and then in January, the second shipment came in, and with more Optic not ready rifles. And then February 28th, when they're sold out of the $200 kits, they announced they'd be no longer be making any more of those kits. That was a big shock to all of us with rifles, with the Optic not ready. So when we asked for an explanation, they said although the sales, the demand was strong at the beginning, it tapered off severely at the end. And I'm thinking to myself, you sold out the kits in 6 months. What does it matter if it's strong at the beginning and weak at the end? You still got more rifles coming in. There's still a third shipment and a fourth shipment coming in. So, like, why? That explanation is really weak. And then they also said, you know, when continue to be pressed, they said, okay, the whole endeavor, you know, where I have to coordinate all the different manufacturers, and it was just, I guess, it was horrendous. And I said, well, you know, that still doesn't make any sense. You spent a year testing and developing this kit for $200, and you're just gonna, like, after 6 months, throw it all away. You know, there got to be more to this story. Okay, so a few members pleaded with them just to make the plate. So they can use these two threaded pins. They said no, because when you start using different type of rails, you're gonna have some issues, and they're gonna end up with a huge warranty claim, which they didn't want to deal with. Okay, so now I'm thinking maybe maybe this is all about warranty claims, and maybe they just didn't want to, the whole entire no drill didn't work in the first place, okay? And maybe that's a better explanation why they're just scrapping this whole project. That would make a better explanation. Having gone through all that, and now we have all these rifles and more rifles coming in with these Optic not ready, I thought to myself, you know what? I did a comparison with the CSA, but not too many people are going to be doing the CSA, because for some reason, although there's a lot of those in Canada, it all of a sudden seemed to dry up. People seem to be holding on to them. I know they're well made, and but like I hardly see them. And so this time I thought to myself, I'm going to show you how to make a mount. It's going to be the G-Nuts no drill mounts, and I'm not going to use 2 pins, I'm going to actually use 3 pins, okay, to make it really stable. And I'm going to use a plate that is really common and really cheap, and also I'm going to use a rail that's cheap that you can even modify. Okay, I'm back. Now there's 3 things you need to be concerned about before you start, and is 1, we need to beef up the side wall of the receiver. And why? Is because the side wall is only 1.5 millimeter thick, and it's made of sheet metal, soft sheet metal. So the plate will not bolt directly onto it. It will not hold. Trust me, 1.5 millimeter is way too thin, and it's soft metal. It will not hold well. So you need to beef up the wall of the receiver with this 3 millimeter thick that you can buy from a local hardware store, and it's 1 inch thick, 1 inch wide, 3 millimeter thick, and you need 6.5 inches of this. Okay, you need to bolt this onto the receiver on the outside. And then there's 2 other items that you have to be concerned about, and that is the plate. This is a very common plate. You can buy them anywhere from AliExpress, eBay, and Amazon. And I just recently paid for them for $8 Canadian to my door. So don't pay more than $8 Canadian to my door. I bought 2 of them because I plan to do 2 of them at the same time. So it'll be a lot cheaper if I did 2. Okay, the next thing you have to be concerned about is the rails. You would mount these rails to vertically as possible, and you want it as close to the center of the top cover. So that would be your goal, okay? As low as you can and to the center as you can. That's what you want to do. Okay, so the next thing I have to do is now mount this plate onto the outside of the receiver. And when I said it's mine, the G-Nuts no drill plate side mount is a 3 pin, and this is what I mean. I'll be using this existing pin and 2 of the stock pins. Okay, and that's why it'll be spanning about this far. So it'll be about 6.5 inches long, and this will hold the front, and these 2 will hold the back. Okay, I'm not drilling any holes into the receiver. I'm using the existing pins and screws. So that's my idea. I'm surprised that no manufacturer has actually come up with that idea. I hacksaw 6.5 inches of the steel plate, and it's 1 inch wide, 3 millimeter thick, and 6.5 inches long, and it's going to go to the side of this receiver like this. Okay, this mod only works with fixed stock, optic not ready pins and selector. The folder does not have these pins, so it won't work. It needs these pins. Now the LMG does have these pins. Unfortunately, it doesn't come in the optic not ready, so it doesn't come with these threaded pins and the right-handed selector. So this mod is only good with a fixed stock optic not ready. So I got that done. Okay, after I file the sharp edges off this plate, I use a black felt pen, and I mark the area that where these holes are. Okay, and this is where it's gonna go. Now push it right up against this ridge and right to the back. Use a couple of C clamps and tighten it snug, not overly tight. I know the hole is here and here, so I'm just going to put it right about here where the clamps, where it's not going to interfere with the hole. Okay, now make sure that it's pushed right up against the ridge, and so I'm just going to tap it a bit just to make sure it's right up against there. Okay, I think it's pretty good. Now I'm going to clamp it tighter. Okay. Don't overly tight. Okay. Then I got a pin, sharp pin. This originally was a precision screwdriver, but I sharpened the tip so it can become like a pin. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to mark the plate that I use a felt pen, and what I'm going to do is put this right through the hole, and I'm going to score that felt pen that I did. So I'm just going to keep going around and around till I have a good mark on there. Okay, that's one. And then I'm doing the second one right here. And the third one is the selector hole. Now this one doesn't have to be too precise because you're just making, because the selector actually protrudes to the other side, to the left side. So you need to, I guess, take some metal off. Okay, now I need to keep doing this. Now this last two, you don't need to do the last two right now. Because once it's tapped and then in place, and then I will do the last two. But for now, let's see what it looks like. There. You see, this is where I now know that hole has to be drilled. Now this one, although I'm drilling a hole, it's just mainly for clearance. I'm going to drill a bigger hole just so the threaded pin will go right through. And this one, because the selector protrudes a little bit, I'm just going to, just cave it in a little bit. And the last two, I will do it at a different time. So now, this is all I needed right now. I'm going to make sure I'm going to center punch this, and then I'm going to have to thread it. So I'll be back. I'm ready to drill the first two holes. The first hole I will tap, and the second hole I'm just going to go right through. And so for the tap hole, I'm using a 5/32 drill bit because this is the hammer pin, and the hammer pin is actually 6mm wide, but the threading is 5mm by 0.8, and the trigger pin is 5mm, and the threading is also 5mm, 0.8 by 0.8. So the second hole I'm just gonna go drill right through because I don't want to cut the thread off. And for that I'm going to use a 7/32. So I center punch both to the hole, and I'm ready to drill. I level, make sure this bar is level. Yep. Make sure that's level, and I tape the bubble in the back of my drill bit, my drill. And now I'm ready to drill the first front hole, which I will tap. Okay, here we go. It's been center punch. Check occasionally that you are centered. I'm centered. Yeah, that's pretty centered. I'm standing on a stool because I want to see the bubble, and below the vise is a container that'll hold the shaving. Okay, it looks like I passed the first bar. I'm into the second one now. Okay, I went through the second bar. Now I'm gonna drill 7/32 of the second hole, and this one I'm not tapping. Okay, this is a 3-point bar, 2 in the back and 1 in the front, and this is just strictly so I don't have to cut the threading. Just in case someday somebody's going to make a side plate, then I can use these pins. So that's why I really don't want to cut the thread off these pins, or this pin. Okay, I'm going to check in once in a while, make sure you're centered, and I am a little bit off, so I'm gonna, but this one is not that important. So I'm all ready to tap. Now we need a little bit of oil, like this. And I'll put it in here. Okay. Just to start it, make sure the bubble is in the center. I know the bubble is wandering around, but as you start threading a little bit more, you're going to be more stable. See, it's staying right in the center. And make sure it's nice and firm. Oh. Okay, now I feel some resistance, so you just back off just to break the shaving. Now you start again. Make sure the bubble is centered. You're turning and pressing down at the same time. Okay, let's see how well I tap this hole. It looks pretty good. I think I did okay. Ah, that looks pretty damn good. Now I'll put it on the rifle and see how it works. I finished tapping the sidebar. Okay, now I'm ready to... the sidebar is now attached because I tapped the first hole. And I drilled an enlarged hole for the second pin. And now I'm ready to tap for the side plate and the back of the bar. And so I just put in this sharp pin and I scratched the felt pen, and over here I did the first two, and I'll do the last one that's below this clamp at a later time. So yeah, so this is pretty good. I'm pretty happy with it so far. It's all been scratched. Let's take a look and see what it looks like. We'll remove the clamp. Okay. This is where the side plate's gonna be. And as you can see, I have a felt marker on the bottom, actually on the bar. And I haven't scratched this one because it was clamped. And this is where it's gonna be tapped to. They provided 3 screws for this side plate, so I'm going to be drilling that. And I also the 2 cross screws that goes in the back is a 4mm, so I'm going to have to drill that and I'll put through here. So I'll be back. I'll be let me finish drilling and tapping the rest of the bar, and I'll be cutting this front off, and this looks pretty good in the back, so I'm not going to do anything to that. But the front, I'm going to remove all this excess material. So I'll be back. I am done. As you can see, I cold blued this sidebar, and before I could cold blue it, I went to my son's and I used the hand grinder. It's a lot faster to clean the surface. As you can see, you can't cold blue it with the existing surface. And so this one is the second one. I'll probably use it for my DMR in the future. Okay, so let me explain what I did with these holes. The first hole is for the hammer pin, which is threaded. It's an M5 by 0.8. The third hole is drilled right through. It's for the trigger pin. Okay, and this one is not threaded. And the last 2 is the stock cross pins, which are threaded. It's an M4 by 0.7. The 3 in the center is for the side plate. Okay, and I decided to mount it right exactly, the top and the bottom matching the bar. Now I decided, now I have a lot of choices of where to place this sidebar, the side plate, and I could go higher, about an eighth of an inch from here, or lower by an eighth of an inch. Now in terms of forward, I can go another quarter inch forward, or I could go an entire inch backwards. And the only reason why I did that is because I chose not to use the nuts that was here. I decided to thread it to the bar. Okay, now I'm installing the screws that came with the side plate. Cost me $8, this plate to my door. It came with an Allen wrench and 3 screws. The screws are a little bit too long, so I had to cut them. Make sure they do not protrude from the bottom of the bar. Okay, the side bar. Now I'm installing them. Make sure also after you cut them that you cold blue the ends. Okay, now once you did that, you can also use Loctite on them. Okay, that is how easy it is to install. Okay, remember, I can move all the way to the back, another quarter inch to the front, and this plate can go up an eighth or lower than an eighth. Okay, now I'm going to show you how to install that onto your rifle. Very simple. Let me get an Allen wrench here. This is the pin, threaded pin that came with the Optic not so ready, and you just place that on top of it, the front. This hole you see here is just to drill right through, like that. So I'm going to put that right there and turn it around. I'm going to start turning the hammer pin like this. Make sure it's biting, and it is. And as you can see, it came out completely. Okay, at this point, you don't need to tighten it too hard. Matter of fact, when I'm installing my G-nuts no drill 3-pin plate bars, I do not need a torque wrench. Okay, don't need a torque wrench. Okay, now I'm going to install, just hand tighten this, the first hammer pin. Now I'm going to use the cross pin, the stock cross pin right here. I'm going to put it right across like this. Now make sure when you use the cross pin, use a washer. Okay. Now you don't have to worry about over tightening, because in between the two side of the receiver is the stock. So you don't have to worry about crunching it. Okay, now turn it right in. Okay, they're coming through right now. You can, these two you lock tight. This one you do not. And like I said, you do not use a torque wrench for this, because just hand tighten like this and make sure you don't over tighten. And here it is. You put Loctite on that and you're good. Now this bar, side bar, is actually held in by these two cross pins. They are the workhorse, okay, not this. The one at the hammer pin is, its job is mostly to pull the bar in, okay, but in terms of up and down movement, the two stock pins are the workhorse, and because they're threaded, they're not going to move anywhere up and down. Now because this is 6.5 inch long, you can technically push it a little bit to the left, away from the receiver. But that's mainly its job. The hammer pin's job is to mostly pull it in and hold it against the side of the receiver. So there you go. You got your 3 points of this no drill mount. 1 from a hammer and 2 from the stock. Now you will also notice this one you do not put Loctite. Why? Is because there will be a time where you need to clean the FCG. And when you clean the when you remove the FCG, this comes out and that comes out, but this do not. So once you clean it, you screw this back in, just hand tighten, and you haven't lost your zero, because these are the workhorse. Okay, as long as you don't touch these, you will always stay zero. Okay, you would also notice that I have removed the swivel, and the reason why is because it was a hinder. It was too high and I couldn't slide the the rails in because it was high. But no big deal, it's just 2 screws like this. I removed it, and obviously I will put it back. So that's it. That's how simple it is to mount my G-Nuts 3 points, no drill side mount. That's how easy it is. Don't have to disassemble the rifle. Just screw it in like this. Now let's talk about these rails. What fits and what doesn't. Okay, first of all, there is a certain height restriction. So this one from Belarus is too short. Even if I move this plate by 1/8 of an inch, it is still too short. So that's out. Besides, this is a front stop. So this actually goes in the front. But it doesn't matter. See, it would have been a lot convenient if this was a front stop. It would be a lot convenient. I wouldn't have to remove the swivel. But like I said, it's about 3/4 inch too short. So this is out. Let's not even talk about that. Let's talk about the CSA. First of all, I have 2 different CSA here. One's a shorter one that's on my DMR. This is a taller one, and there's slight difference. The slight difference, and the difference is mostly in the posts. The short one has a thicker post, and the taller one has skinnier posts. And also the short one has a fixed rail, while the taller one has screws. You can actually remove this rail and put longer ones, and there it is. But both are lean back rails. Okay, so in other words, they mount them forward and they lean backwards. Now the shorter one, again, it's too short. It's short by about 1/2 an inch. So even if I move this by 1/8, it's still too short. It won't work. So that's out. Okay, so let's talk about this one. This tall CSA. Will it work? Actually, it will. Here, I'll put it in for you. And I'll lock it in place. And perfect height. As you can see, it's dead center. Okay. And it doesn't hinder the left-hand shooter. Okay, because the lever's on top and not at the bottom like the tactical import ones, which hinder the left-hand shooter because the lever was down here and you couldn't actually get to the trigger. This is good in terms of height. It's centered. But what's wrong with it? What's wrong with it is that it leans too far back. So it's only actually good for red dot, but nothing else. I can't move this any more forward. It technically, this should be about here, so it needs to be moved about an inch and a half. So this will work if you just want to use red dot and place it over here. But as you can see, it's leaning too far back. I need a forward leaning rail and not a backwards leaning rail. So unfortunately, this is out. Okay, next, let's talk about this one. This cost me $30 US, no, $30 Canadian to my door, and it kind of looks like a fake, and actually it is a fake, and it's the right height, and everything's adjustable, but however, it did not work. First, this locking mechanism does not work. Even if I used that tiny little screw that was in here, it didn't hold this nut well, and I just ended up just screwing it in to make it work. So this locking system does not work. And secondly, most important, from here to the center is too short. In other words, even if you put this side right against here, it wouldn't reach this the center of the rail, wouldn't reach the center of the top cover. So this, even if you adjust it all the way, it did not work. So that's out. So I got two left, and you can kind of tell they're both forward leaning rails. One's from Belarus and one's from China, and they actually looked identical in terms of height and then leaning forward. The only difference between these two is that the one from Belarus has a lever at the bottom, and the one from China has 3 screws at the bottom. Now, you're not restricted to these 3 screws. I just happened to buy them decades ago and happened to have 3 screws. But you can buy them from $20 Canadian to your door with a lever on top. Okay, it's just that this is the way it is that I bought. Now let's try putting this in. And let's flip it over and lock it in place. And it's really solid. And it is the right height. As you can see from the bottom of this bar here, or the post, is about almost touching the top cover. So this cannot go any lower. Okay, and yet the rail is about 1/4 of an inch from the top cover, just the way it was made, because this rail is detachable. It has screws. Okay, so what's wrong with this? The only thing wrong with this one, this one is old, but when I lock this in place, the whole rail tilted upwards. Okay, as you can see, it's tilted upwards. So that won't do. But is it dead center? It is dead center. As you can see, it ended up dead center. And it is, could I move it forward a little bit more? Let me unlock this. Yes, I could move a little bit forward and lock it in place. Okay, it did not improve the tilt. It's tilting up. I don't mind it tilting down if it's for a longer distance. Well, tilting up is not ideal. So that did not improve, even when I moved it all the way to the front. But everything else is perfect, unfortunately. It's dead center. This is as close as you're going to get. The bottom of this post is almost touching the top cover. And let's see. Oh, and the lever does not interfere with the lefty shooter. So that's perfect. Unfortunately, no. So I'm going to pull that out. I'm going to try this. No, by the way, whenever you put these one in, don't put it all the way touching the side plate, because there's a ramp, and if you push it too far in and then you screw it in, it won't go to the proper position. So do not put it all the way in. Okay, like this. Like, always seem to, also when you do that, when you put it all the way in, your connection from the bottom, like here for instance, will be way out here. You're not going to have a proper connection. You're going to try, whenever you're going to try to connect these, like you need this bottom part. All these rails are basically a 3-point rail. The top are touching this top part, and the bottom is actually touching this part right here. If you go past and you're touching here, even partly, you're not getting the full effect. Okay, so that's not what you want. You want to get as much of this part, which is 1 inch, onto here. Okay, that is the goal. Okay, so therefore, when you slide this in, don't go all the way, because guess what I'm doing? I'm actually putting this on the ramp. So when I tighten it, I'm preventing it from sitting it properly. So I'm going to have to pull back. I'm going to make it even with the front of the rail. See that? Okay, so this is now even with the front with the rail. Now I'm going to start tightening it. Unfortunately, this mount from China has 2 different Allen wrench, which is a pain. It means I have to use 2 different types. This is bigger, that's tighten, and then the 2 side ones are smaller. Why 2 different types? I don't know. It just came with it. Okay, so it's important. Okay, actually this one doesn't even touch, so you don't need to bother with that. Just this one and this one. Okay, now let me look at, and guess what? The bottom of that rail is almost touching the top cover. That's perfect. See that? And it's straight. It's completely horizontal. No angle at all. And is also dead center. See that? It's dead center to the top cover. So this is perfect. Is it solid? It's solid as a rock of Gibraltar. It's not going anywhere. Now that I'm done with installing that, I can now put this swivel back in. I know it's an extra step, pain in the ass, but it's better than other mounts you got there. There, that's perfect. Doesn't interfere with the lefty shooter. Isn't that perfect? Now, let me put my LVPO. Ta-da! Nice. What do you think? Looks good, huh? Excellent. There you have it. So thank you very much for joining me, and please subscribe.